So here's the second lesson. The first lesson is we can choose this. The apostles did. They chose to give themselves, to stick to prayer, Acts 6:4. Now back to Job, real quickly, chapter 1, and we're just going to stick there the whole time. So it's one of those things that once you find it, in fact, you know what I do at Calvary? I tell them where the books are. If you just hit the middle and find Psalms, back up through 150 chapters of the Psalms and go to Job. It's just 4 Psalms. In the first chapter, the 5th verse. In the 5th verse, God gives us 5 elements of Job's biblical prayers. Now, this is the YouTube clip. You can't have a more clearly portrayed direction of life and in the technique, if you want to call it that, of prayers. Okay? Now, first, Job's Spirit-filled prayers followed the lives. This is the first thing. Now, if you want to understand prayer, God gives us 5 very vivid portraits of how to pray. And here's the first one. And the first one is Spirit-filled biblical prayers follow the lives. Now, again, in the New Testament, you know what Paul said? Paul said, you know what's on me? The weight of caring for the churches. He said, I pray for you. You know what prayer means? Following someone's life. It doesn't mean the now I lay me down to sleep stuff that you just say over and over again and don't think twice about it. It's actually tracking with someone, following them by prayer. Let me show you what I mean. Look at the verse. Job 1, verse 5. So it was, when the days of feasting had run their course. Now, remember last night I was talking about Job's kids were grown up. He had 10 of them, by the way. And his kids had moved out of the house. By the way, Job was very wealthy. He was the wealthiest man in the East. He had what we would call, an estate. And he had all these flocks, and he had all these people that worked for him out there and managed all of his flocks. And he had these 10 children, and he had set his children up with their own homes, and they were out there somewhere on the perimeter of his acreage. And the children would spend time all inviting each other to their cottages and visiting, kind of like being on the estate in these condos or something. And Job knew what they were doing. Job knew. Think about what this means. He knew that they had chosen to have this feasting time and had run their course. He knew what was going on in his children's lives. Now think about that. He wasn't nosy. This isn't prying. This is love. This is someone who knew what was going on in their lives. He knew the cycle of their house visits, their parties, their gatherings. He was in touch on a daily basis. He knew the course of their feasting. He knew where they were headed. He followed his children around in his heart. Why? Because he had a godly concern, love for them. I want to ask you, is there anybody that you love so much that you're always tracking them? You know where they are. You know what they're doing. You know their schedule. That's what I'm talking about. It's not nosiness. There's some people that are always going, what are you doing? Where are you going? Why are you doing that? I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about someone that says, oh, I'm going to be praying for you. Where are you going this week? I have a fella that I encourage and hold accountable, and I know right now he's on a business trip. And he's far away, and he represents a medical company. He does a lot of traveling, and he told me, I'm going to tell you I have another friend who's in the ministry who travels internationally constantly. And he always says, I really struggle when I'm on the road. He said, it's so lonesome. And I have it written down in my calendar. I always know where he is, what country he's in, when he's flying, when he's in airports. Why? Because he is one that I track by prayer in my heart because I love him. Are you following anyone's life with prayer? That's just a question. I mean, if you have children, then you should, in fact, one of my children, on my phone, they taught me, there's this little thing, it's notes, and it looks like a little yellow ruled paper. And for me, it's really neat. And so I always push my little yellow paper, it looks like that, and I I sat down with each of my kids and wrote down all their prayer requests. And then I get my little yellow paper screen out, and when I'm talking to them on the phone, I just get to their page and I say, hey, how is this going? And after about the third one with one of my children, they said, how do you know all those things? I said, what do you mean? They said, how did you know that was what I was working on? I said, because you told me at Christmas when we met and had prayer requests. And they said, you remember that? I said, well, I wrote it down, but I do pray for it. And they said, could I give you a few more? You want to revolutionize your local church, wherever it is that you are fed and ministered to by the Word of God? Go up to someone on Sunday, next Sunday, be here tomorrow, but next Sunday, go up to them and say, don't do a stranger, it'll scare them. We did this, Bonnie and I did this at Grace Community Church. We walked up to someone and said, hi, we're friendly, we're from Grace, and there's 5,000 people there, and everybody in Los Angeles, and they're all kind of skittish. And the people just went, and went away from us. They were afraid of being close to anybody. So don't do anybody. Find someone you know a little bit and say, hey, what's going on in your life that I could pray about this week? And then actually write it down and pray for it. And the next Sunday, so on the 9th, ask them. On the 16th of September, come up to them and ask them about that. And they'll look at you. And they'll say, how did you know about that? And you say, you told me last Sunday. And they go, you remembered? Yeah. You prayed? And I see this all the time at Calvary. People can't believe you care enough that you remember and you actually pray. That's what this first element of prayer is. It's learning to follow someone's life.